When pediatric nurse Linda Morrison arrived for her morning shift at Seattle Children's Hospital on a cold December morning in 1992, she never expected to find a blond man in a flannel shirt sitting quietly in the corner of the cancer ward, reading a book to 8-year-old Emma Davies. The man looked familiar, but it wasn't until she heard his distinctive voice that she realized she was looking at Kurt Cobain, the most famous rock star in the world, spending his morning with children who were fighting for their lives. What Linda discovered that day would remain a closely guarded secret for over 2 decades. Kurt hadn't come to the hospital for publicity or photo opportunities. He had been visiting sick children regularly for nearly 2 years, always arriving quietly, never announcing his presence, and specifically requesting that no media or hospital administrators be notified of his visits. But what made Kurt's hospital visits even more extraordinary was the reason he started coming in the first place. It wasn't a charitable obligation or a publicity stunt. It was because of a promise he made to a dying child. A promise that would change his understanding of what it meant to use his fame for something meaningful. The story of Kurt's secret hospital visits would finally be revealed years after his death, when nurses who had sworn to keep his visits confidential decided that the world needed to know about the man behind the music. What they revealed would show a side of Kurt Cobain that contradicted every stereotype about rock stars and fame. The story began in October 1991, just as Nevermind was beginning to explode across radio stations worldwide. Kurt was still adjusting to his newfound fame when he received a letter that would profoundly impact the rest of his life. The letter came from Janet Foster, a mother in Seattle, whose 9-year-old son Michael was dying of leukemia. "Dear Kurt," the letter began, "my son Michael is your biggest fan. He has all your albums and listens to Smells Like Teen Spirit every day while he's getting his chemotherapy treatments. The doctors don't think he has much time left, and his biggest dream is to meet you before he dies. I know you must get letters like this all the time, but if there's any way you could visit Michael, it would mean everything to him." Most celebrity fan mail gets filtered through management companies and publicists, but this particular letter somehow made it directly to Kurt. When he read Janet's heartfelt plea, something inside him was deeply moved. "Kurt brought that letter to the studio and read it to us," recalled Chris Novoselic years later. "He was really affected by it. He kept saying, 'This kid is dying and he wants to meet me. How can I say no to that?'" Dave Grohl remembered Kurt's reaction to the letter vividly. Kurt wasn't used to thinking of his music in terms of helping people through difficult situations. When he realized that his songs were giving comfort to a sick kid, it really shook him up in a good way. Kurt immediately called the number provided in the letter and spoke with Janet Foster. He arranged to visit Michael at Seattle Children's Hospital the following week, but he had one specific request. He wanted the visit to completely private, with no media attention or hospital publicity. "I don't want this to be about me," Kurt told Janet during their phone conversation. "This should be about Michael. I just want to spend some time with him, and hopefully make him feel a little better." On October 15, 1991, Kurt walked into Seattle Children's Hospital for the first time. He was wearing his typical uniform of jeans, a flannel shirt, and Converse sneakers, trying to look as normal and non-threatening as possible. When Kurt first arrived, he seemed really nervous, recalled Dr. Patricia Chen, who was Michael Foster's oncologist at the time. He kept asking if he was doing the right thing, if his presence would somehow upset the other children or disrupt the hospital routine. But Kurt's nervousness disappeared the moment he met Michael Foster. The 9-year-old boy was thin and pale from his cancer treatments, but his eyes lit up when he saw his musical hero walk into his hospital room. "Are you really Kurt Cobain?" Michael asked in a weak voice. "Yeah, I am," Kurt replied, pulling up a chair next to Michael's bed. "I heard you've been listening to our music. What's your favorite song?" What followed was a 2-hour conversation that would change both of their lives. Michael talked about his battle with cancer, his fears about dying, and how Nirvana's music helped him feel brave during his treatments. Kurt listened intently, occasionally asking questions and sharing stories about writing songs and performing on stage. Kurt was completely focused on Michael, observed nurse Linda Morrison, who was present during the visit. He wasn't distracted or uncomfortable like some celebrities can be around sick children. He was genuinely interested in getting to know Michael as a person. During their conversation, Michael asked Kurt if he could play guitar. Kurt immediately went to his car and retrieved his acoustic guitar, returning to Michael's room to perform an intimate concert for an audience of one. Kurt played Something in the Way and Polly for Michael, Dr. Chen recalled. But he also played some songs I'd never heard before. Songs that seemed more gentle and hopeful than his usual material. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. As the visit was coming to an end, Michael made a request that would echo in Kurt's mind for years to come. "Will you come back and see me again?" Michael asked. "The other kids here would love to meet you too. A lot of them listen to your music." Kurt promised he would return, but what happened next caught everyone off guard. Michael passed away just 3 days after Kurt's visit, succumbing to complications from his leukemia treatment. When Kurt found out that Michael had died, he was devastated. Janet Foster later revealed, "He called me immediately and started crying on the phone. He kept saying that he wished he had visited sooner, that maybe he could have spent more time with Michael." Michael's death could have ended Kurt's involvement with the hospital, but instead, it had the opposite effect. At Michael's funeral, which Kurt attended privately, he made a promise to Janet Foster that would define the next 2 years of his life. "I promise I'll keep visiting the kids at the hospital," Kurt told Janet after the funeral service. "Michael asked me to come back for the other children, and I'm going to honor that request." True to his word, Kurt began making regular visits to Seattle Children's Hospital, typically arriving on weekday mornings when the hospital was less busy and media attention was unlikely. He always came alone, never brought an entot, and specifically requested that his visits not be publicized. Kurt would show up about once every 2 weeks, recalled head nurse Susan Martinez, who helped coordinate his visits. He would always call ahead to make sure it was okay, and he always asked which children might benefit most from a visit. Kurt's approach to his hospital visits was methodical and thoughtful. He would spend time researching each child's condition and interests before his visits, often bringing small gifts or items that related to their specific situation. Kurt once spent an entire afternoon learning about a particular type of brain tumor because he was going to visit a child who had that diagnosis, Dr. Chen remembered. He wanted to understand what the child was going through so he could better connect with them. The children's reactions to Kurt's visits varied, but most were thrilled to meet someone they had seen on television and heard on the radio. For many of them, Kurt's visits provided a welcome distraction from their medical treatments and hospital routines. The kids would light up when Kurt arrived, observed child life specialist Jennifer Walsh. Even the children who weren't familiar with his music could sense that he was someone special, and they responded to his genuine interest in their well-being. Kurt's visits weren't limited to individual bedside meetings. He often spent time in common areas of the hospital, playing acoustic guitar and singing for groups of children. These impromptu concerts became legendary among hospital hosts. Kurt would sit in our activity room with his guitar and just start playing, Nurse Linda Morrison recalled. Children from all over the ward would come to listen. Some were in wheelchairs, some were connected to IV poles, but they all wanted to hear Kurt sing. What made Kurt's hospital performances special wasn't just his musical talent, but his ability to connect with children who were facing life-threatening illnesses. He had a gift for making each child feel seen and valued. Kurt never talked down to the children or treated them like they were fragile, observed Dr. Sarah Johnson, a child psychologist who worked at the hospital. He spoke to them like equals, acknowledging their strength and courage in fighting their illnesses. One of Kurt's most memorable hospital visits occurred in the spring of 1992, when he met 7-year-old Tommy Chen, who was recovering from a bone marrow transplant to treat his dyslexia. Tommy was feeling discouraged about his treatment and had stopped responding to the hospital staff. Tommy had basically shut down, recalled his nurse, Maria Rodriguez. He wouldn't talk to doctors, wouldn't participate in activities. His parents were really worried about his emotional state. When Kurt heard about Tommy's situation, he asked if he could spend some extra time with the boy. What happened during their 3-hour conversation remained private, but the results were immediately apparent. After Kurt's visit, Tommy was completely transformed, Dr. Johnson observed. He started participating in his treatment again, talking to staff members, and showing interest in activities. Whatever Kurt said to him had a profound impact. Kurt's influence extended beyond individual children to their families as well. Many parents found comfort in knowing that someone as famous and successful as Kurt Cobain cared about their children's well-being. Having Kurt visit my daughter made me feel like she mattered to the world, explained Rebecca Martinez, whose daughter Sophia was being treated for a rare genetic disorder. It wasn't just about meeting a celebrity. It was about feeling like someone important cared about our struggle. The hospital staff began to notice that Kurt's visits had brought benefits for the entire pediatric ward. Morale among both children and staff improved on the days when Kurt was present, and his positive energy seemed to spread throughout the facility. Kurt had this amazing ability to bring joy into very difficult situations, observed Dr. Patricia Williams, the head of pediatric oncology. His presence reminded everyone, staff, patients, and families, that there was still beauty and hope in the world, even in the midst of serious illness. As Kurt's fame continued to grow with Nirvana's success, maintaining the secrecy of his hospital visits became increasingly challenging. However, the hospital staff and families involved were committed to honoring Kurt's request for privacy. We all understood that Kurt's visits were special precisely because they weren't public, explained hospital social worker David Park. If the media had found out, it would have changed the entire dynamic and probably would have ended Kurt's ability to visit. Kurt's commitment to his hospital visits continued even as his personal struggles with fame and addiction intensified. Hospital staff noted that his visits seemed to provide him with a sense of purpose and perspective during a difficult period in his life. Kurt often seemed troubled when he arrived at the hospital, Nurse Susan Martinez observed, but spending time with the children seemed to ground him and remind him of what was important. He would leave looking more peaceful than when he arrived. The children at the hospital had no way of knowing about Kurt's personal struggles. To them, he was simply a kind man who took time out of his busy schedule to spend time with them and make them feel special. Kurt never brought his problems into the hospital, Dr. Chen noted. No matter what was going on in his life, he was completely present and focused on the children during his visits. One of Kurt's most significant contributions to the hospital came in late 1992, when he learned that the pediatric music therapy program was facing budget cuts. Without any publicity or fanfare, Kurt made a substantial anonymous donation that not only saved the program but allowed it to expand. Kurt believed strongly in the healing power of music, explained music therapist Carol Thompson, who ran the program. He saw firsthand how music could help children cope with pain and fear, and he wanted to make sure that resource remained available. Kurt's donation funded new instruments, equipment, and staff positions that allowed the music therapy program to serve more children and families. The program, which still operates today, has helped thousands of children find comfort in Echurch through music. Kurt's contribution to our music therapy program has had a lasting impact that extends far beyond his personal visits, Dr. Williams reflected. Children are still benefiting from his generosity more than 30 years later. As 1993 progressed, Kurt's hospital visits became even more important to him personally. Friends and family members noticed that he often woozled his visits during particularly stressful periods in his life, as if the time spent with sick children provided him with much-needed perspective and emotional balance. Kurt would come back from the hospital visits talking about how brave and strong the children were, recalled friend Dylan Carlson. He seemed to draw inspiration from their courage in facing such serious challenges. The hospital staff began to recognize that Kurt's visits were as beneficial for him as they were for the children. His interactions with young patients seemed to remind him of the positive impact his music could have on people's lives. I think the hospital visits helped Kurt remember why he started making music in the first place, observed Dr. Johnson. It wasn't about fame or money, it was about connecting with people and making them feel less alone. Kurt's final hospital visit took place in early March 1994, just weeks before his death. Hospital staff later recalled that he seemed more introspective than usual during this visit, spending extra time with each child and expressing gratitude for being allowed to be part of their lives. Kurt's last visit was especially meaningful, Nurse Linda Morrison remembered. He told the children how much their strength and positivity had meant to him over the years. It felt like he was saying goodbye, though none of us understood that at the time. During this final visit, Kurt made arrangements to continue supporting the hospital's music therapy program, setting up a trust fund that would provide ongoing financial support for the program's activities. This ensured that his commitment to the children would continue even if he was unable to visit in person. When news of Kurt's death reached Seattle Children's Hospital in April 1994, the impact on staff and families who had known him was profound. Many of the children he had visited were too young to fully understand what had happened, but the hospital staff struggled with the loss of someone who had become an integral part of their community. Kurt's death was devastating for all of us who had worked with him, Dr. Chen reflected. He had become more than just a celebrity visitor. He was a friend and partner in caring for our patients. The hospital held a private memorial service for Kurt, attended only by staff members and families who had known him personally. During the service, many people shared stories about Kurt's kindness, generosity, and genuine care for the children he had visited. The Kurt Cobain we knew was nothing like his public image, Nurse Susan Martinez said during the memorial service. He was gentle, thoughtful, and completely dedicated to making sick children feel loved and valued. In the years following Kurt's death, several of the children he had visited grew up to become advocates for pediatric healthcare and music therapy. Many credited their interactions with Kurt as formative experiences that shaped their understanding of compassion and service to others. Meeting Kurt taught me that famous people could be real people too, explained Tommy Chen, the boy who had transformed after Kurt's visit. More importantly, it taught me that everyone has the power to make a difference in someone else's life, no matter who they are. The secret of Kurt's hospital visits remained largely unknown to the public until 2016, when several of the nurses who had worked with him decided to share their stories. Their decision was motivated by a desire to honor Kurt's memory and to highlight the positive impact that celebrities can have when they use their fame thoughtfully. "We kept Kurt's secret for over 20 years because that's what he wanted," explained Linda Morrison. "But we realized that sharing these stories could inspire other people to find ways to help children who are facing difficult situations." The revelation of Kurt's hospital visits prompted other musicians and celebrities to become involved with Seattle Children's Hospital. The hospital now has a robust celebrity visitor program that was directly inspired by Kurt's example of meaningful, private engagement with patients. "Kurt showed us the right way to involve celebrities in patient care," Dr. Williams noted. "It's not about publicity or photo opportunities. It's about genuine human connection and using your platform to bring joy to people who need it most." Today, Seattle Children's Hospital has a wing dedicated to Kurt Cobain's memory, featuring a music therapy room equipped with instruments and recording equipment funded by his estate. The room serves as a lasting tribute to Kurt's commitment to using music as a healing force. "Kurt understood something that many people don't," reflected Dr. Patricia Chen. "Fame and talent are gifts that can be used to help others, but only if you approach that responsibility with humility and genuine care." The story of Kurt's secret hospital visits reveals a side of the grunge icon that few people knew existed. Behind the troubled rock star persona was a man who found meaning and purpose in bringing comfort to sick children, and who understood the profound responsibility that comes with fame and influence. Kurt's hospital visits showed us who he really was at his core. Nurse Linda Morrison concluded. He was someone who cared deeply about others, and who wanted to use his success to make the world a little bit better for children who were suffering. The legacy of Kurt's 2-year commitment to Seattle Children's Hospital continues to inspire healthcare workers, families, and other celebrities to find meaningful ways to support children facing medical challenges. His example demonstrates that true compassion requires no publicity or recognition, only a willingness to show up and make a difference in the lives of those who need it most. Kurt Cobain's secret hospital visits remain one of the most touching and inspiring chapters of his life story, revealing the generous heart that beat behind the grunge exterior, and showing how one person's commitment to helping others can create a lasting legacy of hope and healing. If this incredible story of Kurt's hidden compassion moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to see how celebrities can use their platform for good. Have you ever been inspired to help others because of something a public figure did? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more untold stories about the humanity behind music's greatest legends.